I don't have any questions at this time. I have a lot of notes that I have to go over, but no questions right now.
Same with me. That's
I just have a question in terms of the any of the training aspects in terms of deciding who is retained and who passes. Is any of that subjective? Like, are there? I couldn't quite tell in the outline if these were all. You mentioned the comprehensive exam. I think those were all multiple choice. I think you said, but I don't know if there's anything else that is more subjective in terms of how the answers are assessed, in terms of how an officer performs, and anything else throughout the academy.
Sure. So in regards, you're talking about testing and failures and whatnot?
Yeah, kind of how we get to people not passing through
Sure.
the program.
Sure. So each of the tests have a threshold, just like it was in college. A passing score, and then the and then there is an opportunity to retrain and retest. But then if they fail the retest, then they're dismissed from the academy. So there are standards that they have to meet for, say, for example, the scenario tests and the academic tests, but they only have those two opportunities, and they're to pass that, and they're dismissed if not.
So Raymond, if I can comment also, hi, I'm Jim Grockow, the Bureau Chief in Basic Training. So the written or the comprehensive tests are all, they're standardized pass scores that have to happen. Academies don't have any say in the pass scores unless they want to increase them for everybody. So there's no way they can say one person will pass, one doesn't. They don't have access to the questions either. Those are kept confidential with post so that they can't have any kind of influence with individuals over the questions. But there's a number of tests that go on that are skills-based, including the firearms course, the firearms testing, the arrest and control testing, the physical fitness testing, and the scenario testing. Scenarios are kind of where the recruits have to put everything they've learned together in a controlled real life scenario where there's objective grading forms that are post grading forms that they are evaluated by certified people that go through the training course. So we have what's called scenario managers. Scenario managers must go to the post course in order to become a scenario manager for an academy. And then scenario evaluators all go through a standardized course so that it's consistent no matter which presenter or which evaluator in scenarios that they go to, that it's being consistent. And so the scenario manager has the final say over any questions or disputes over whether a student passed or not. And those are retained by the presenter. And when we go out and do the audits that Raymond mentioned, we actually make them hold on to those so we can review them and make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. That's part of our auditing process of the base course presenters.
And for the standardized tests, what's the pass percentage? Like, do you have to get like 85%, 65%? Like, what amount of correct responses?
It goes up based upon each test. So the first one I believe is 80%, and then it's 82, and then 84 I think is the top. And I have somebody that handles that, so I don't memorize every one of those. And that's for the comprehensive tests, the online ones. Does that help?
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. Any other questions of post staff?
I guess I have one more question. In thinking about, I know that post has like threat assessment trainings. I assume that those are also things that are incorporated into the training that the officers have throughout the academy in terms of responding to threat, assessing threat. And I've been thinking about how post is potentially including kind of anti-bias work that RIPA requires in those types of training. So how has that been incorporated into trainings coming from the academy? Because we want to be instilling that in the outset in terms of even their first presentation with policing, or and making sure that's part of how they're learning at the course. So is that incorporated in? How is it done?
Sure.
It's
So,
infused, it's really infused through the entire academy. Sorry about that, Ray. Learning Domain 3 specifically address bias and community policing and what Ray had talked about before. So it is really infused throughout the entire training. And again, realizing that these are basic courses, so they're the baseline, that the officer gets just enough what they need to enter a field training program. And then it's reinforced through the field training program and then throughout their entire career through in-service training. So without knowing the specifics on what the question is entailing, it is definitely interwoven throughout the academy.
And is that a different training than the ones that Post has available generally that we've been kind of working with and seeing, or are they using those at the outset?
So for the most part, the training that goes on in the basic courses is basic. It's the baseline. So it's not going to be the same training exactly that an in-service officer would get, because they don't have the same experiences that an in-service officer has. They haven't yet gone out and dealt with members of the public from a law enforcement side. And so that's something they get after they graduate the academy. They'll get a more advanced, if you will, as what we call advanced officer training, and more advanced level of training. And that's true of every discipline within the officer's training.
If it's possible, then I would love to see that training, at least the standalone version. And you said it's incorporated kind of in theory into some of the other trainings as well, but I would love to see.
I'm specifically referencing the basic courses.
Yeah.
As far as the courses regarding the in-service courses, that's outside of our realm of Raymond and I. So I really can't comment into what's in that curriculum because that's nothing to do with my operation. So.
Yeah, I'd love to see the basic, because I think we've started to see some of the ongoing courses already, and we're brought in for some of those. So I'd love to see kind of where they're the starting point, particularly for officers who haven't yet had any, as you mentioned, like haven't had any interactions yet with the public from that perspective. So I'd love to see.
I'll turn that back over to Megan to see what she can work on, because I'm not quite sure what you're wanting exactly.
So, well, maybe this will help. Megan, let me ask this. The PowerPoint that Raymond was showing, could we get a copy of that? Because I did kind of rudely cut him off. We can do that?
Yeah.
Okay. And then Melanie, it may show more information than we were, that we didn't give Raymond enough time to go through everything. It was starting to show the learning domains. Am I right or wrong on that one, Raymond?
I was able to get through all the slides, but I think what might actually be helpful is if you visit the Post website, the training testing specifications that I mentioned are viewable by everybody. And I think you'll find, especially in Learning Domain 3, Principled Policing in the Community, Learning Domain 20, Use of Force, we included a brand new de-escalation chapter in there. LD 42, culture diversity. Especially in those three learning domains, I think you might find more information what you're looking for. LD 1, leadership, professionalism, and ethics. A lot of those concepts are visited from what I'm interpreting from your question, and those are spread out through the academy as well. So I think you might find those helpful as well.
To make
if we
it
go to the website, we can see the full
easier,
videos that are presented to the officer.
Sorry, I missed that question.
If we go to the website, we're able to view the whole videos that are presented to officers. Is that correct?
Well, we don't necessarily do videos. With the basic training, it's all in classroom, in person, and I think for the basic training level, if it's so much more beneficial to have recruits and the instructors face to face, where they can have those discussions together, as opposed to just watch a video. You want a stronger foundation, right?
I guess
Melanie,
go ahead.
I can send you a link to the training and testing specifications as well as the workbooks that the Academy attendees receive. But Post, again, still only does the minimum requirements. So what the academy might provide is going to be above and beyond what you're going to see from us. But I can definitely send you the link so it's a little bit easier to find, as well as our presentations too.
Megan, this is Nancy. Could you send those to Anna, please, and she can distribute it to them to the entire subcommittee?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Megan, quick question, and or for Raymond and or for Jim. So Post has public meetings, right? Just like what we're doing here. Is there what link or how would a citizen or someone from the public have access to those meetings in lieu of what's happening with COVID? Is there a website that they can go to know when those meetings are?
Yeah, our commission meets 3 times a year. If you go to our website, there is a link under About Us and the Post Commission. And we've only had one meeting since COVID. It was in June, and it was broadcast live through Facebook. There's links on there, our agenda. Just like with you guys, we have Bagley Keene, so everything has to be put out ahead of time. And our next meeting is in October, and it will be most of it done online as well.
Okay, and so we would look under Post and then go to Commission and then look at those schedules and all that good stuff.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. So I think we need to take some time right now at 11:56 to ask for public comments and give our community members an opportunity to ask questions of Post. Anybody ready out of the public? I think. Oh, there you are. Ms. Glover? Oh, you're on mute. There you go.
Now I think you can hear me. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. So I have a few things to say. The first thing is one of the early RIPA meetings, I believe it was September 2017 in San Diego. There was actually a lot of good public commentary about the materials that Post produces. And a lot of that commentary, I'll direct you to, I think it's the first person, if you pulled up these videos of the RIPA meetings from September 2017, San Diego, the first person to speak publicly, I think, is a key kind of speaker. And he's really talking about the Post materials really not reflecting the community interests or the input or really the understanding and experience of the community. So I'm really wondering, as Post is talking about this work and the materials and training, how you're bringing the actual community into your development of these issues. And again, that meeting would be a real source there. One of the things I'm also interested in is in this subcommittee, how are you able to, or perhaps this is for another subcommittee, I'm not sure, how are you able to integrate issues of accountability with training? So are you considering issues of how is training measured? What happens when training fails? In very practical, specific ways, like what is the ramification of this? And I haven't heard a lot about any kind of issue of accountability with the training, and I'm wondering if someone could speak to that. One of the things that I look at in my work are the theories around bettering community police relations, and I know that's really the ground of your work here with RIPA, and we all appreciate the work that you're doing, especially in these times, right? There's this massive wind going on, and I'm so lucky that in California we have RIPA already established. we're ahead of things on some level with this. And I hope that y'all take advantage of this moment because we're begging you to. But one of the things that I'm noting in a lot of the post-training materials is the idea of procedural justice as a theoretical frame and the idea of implicit bias as a theoretical frame. And those two theories in police studies are problematic. I've been talking to Ripa about this since the beginning. And one of the main reasons both of those theories are problematic is they're very micro level. They're very, what is the actual kind of one-on-one relationship with the community member and the police officer? When what we really need change to happen in is more structural issues, right? Is the more structural issues, accountability issues, not letting law enforcement be able to engage in these transgressive practices and continue to be law enforcement, for instance. So the theories that Post is really kind of centering is problematic. And then, and I mean this in all due respect for the hard work that y'all are doing, but I would just throw out here to be a little good troublemaker is I don't hear much different than if I was sitting in on a training thing from law enforcement after Rodney King in 1991. I don't really hear anything here that is telling me there's any different level of looking at issues of police relationships in our Black communities, in our brown communities, in our working class communities than I heard decades ago. And I mean that in all respect for the work that you're doing, because we gotta think differently. We're at a moment where we gotta think differently, and pulling out what we've been doing for decades and decades and decades is not going to get us where the people want us to be. Thank you.
Karen, before you go, just really quickly, you said the 2017 RIPA board, was it do you remember if it was June or January? Do you remember which one it was? You're on mute again. Okay.
I had to mute myself because I was all fired up and I didn't want to scare everybody off. But I thought it was September. I actually just pulled it up yesterday myself. There's a part 1 and a part 2 of it. And the part 1 of it is actually a main guy from Post rolling out a big presentation of Post training, and then part 2 includes the public comments where people are, really pushing back on it. But I'm pretty sure it's September, but it's San Diego 2017.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
There's one public comment that came from Ms. Nelson, and here's a question for the earlier presentation. How are agencies able to decide whether or not a complaint of racial profiling gets reported? I think that was the earlier stop data portion. Can anybody from Post answer that? Nope. Okay. Any other public comments?
Sorry, Sandra, I don't want to let that one. I don't want to let that one go. This is Allison. Maybe Norma Nelson can clarify exactly what she means by deciding whether a complaint gets reported. There are reporting requirements that they do, but I see you. So I will let you clarify, and we'll try to answer.
Yes, thank you so much for allowing me to ask my question. I personally encountered a situation where I was racially profiled, and I reported the incident to my local police department and asked that they make sure that that's reported to RIPA. However, they responded by saying that they did not think that my complaint was justified. And later on, the mayor was recently talking about how this particular city has a clean record of racial profiling incidents for the past 5 years. And I was like, oh, how is that so? Because I know I personally filed a complaint, and I know that there have been incidents in the community where that has been occurring. So how does this community, this city, have a clean record on racial profiling? And I personally know that I filed a complaint. So do they get to decide whether or not it's a valid complaint or not if someone complains about a racial profiling incident? That's my question. Do I need to clarify it further?
Oh, no. I'm thinking we take pause because I think we're thinking about it, and I'm sure somebody, will come up with an answer to that. I think if you made the complaint is recorded. So there is a complaint, whether it was, sustained or whatever, that's the outcome of it, but it was a complaint made, correct? So it needs to
Yes,
be
it was.
counted. That's my assumption, yes. Does anybody have any comments to Ms. Nelson's question other than what I just said? We don't know which city you're talking about either.
I don't know
Yeah,
if
it's
I need,
okay.
yeah, I don't know if I need to disclose it in order to have the question answered.
No, you
but
don't. No, you don't.
okay,
Yeah, it'd be interesting that we can look at that.
This is
I can offline then. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is Allison. I just wanted to chime in that basically, and we highlighted this in the 2020 report, the law does require that every agency has to establish a procedure to investigate complaints. And then they have to include the number, all law enforcement agencies, starting from 2016, have to include the number of complaints alleging racial or identity profiling. And then state law also requires agencies to include the dispositions of the complaints. And so that information is submitted. We did discuss in last year's report how there are a lot of disparities how the information is submitted and how whether it's counted as a complaint. And so the last year's report did discuss that. But I think the law does require that each agency does report it. But we did note that there are, the DOJ is collecting it and reporting on it. And we did note that there are disparities when looking at the data and how it's being reported. So I think that's one area that the board is looking to how to resolve that moving forward.
And Allison, this is Angela.
Yes, sorry, Angela, go ahead.
The report that you're referring to, I just want to clarify, that's on our website and on the RIPA board page on the DOJ website that is easily accessible, right?
Yes.
That
yes, and we
discusses
can
this.
include the link. Yes, we will include the link in the chat box so you can access the report. And then each agency does have, should have avenues that if the agencies are not, if you feel as though the agencies are not complying with the law, there are also, each agency has its own procedures to file a complaint about that. But I will put a link to our 2020 report, which discusses, what the law requires and what problems that the board has been seeing in terms of analyzing the complaint data. I'll put that link into the chat box.
Okay, I reviewed your prior reports, so I thought I was familiar with what the requirements were when I made the complaint, and it was kind of shocking to me that this mayor claimed that the city had a clean record in terms of racial profiling, and it was absurd that he would say that, particularly since I know that I was racially profiled and bullied by this police officer who, well, I won't go into the details unless you need me to, but something needs to be done to make sure that if a report is filed by a citizen about racial profiling, that the local police department doesn't get to just dismiss it as invalid and not report it. so that it appears they have a clean record, and they do not, in fact, have a clean record.
To that question or point, one thing, I know there's some feedback now, but one thing that we have observed in some departments, and I think this is maybe what Allison was also referring to, is that the practice of some agencies is not to necessarily count everything that comes to it as a complaint. By that, under that term, they might adopt an inquiry or call it something else, so that it doesn't rise to the level of a complaint. And if it's not being reflected in the complaints against the agency on the RIPA data, then it's possible that it's because of the agency's practice of basically kind of ignoring certain complaints, or because they don't necessarily meet a certain, whatever their internal criteria is for something to be an actual complaint. If it's the fact that it was maybe lodged as a complaint but not sustained by the agency because it cleared itself of wrongdoing, that could be what, I'm not sure if that's what you're referring to as terms of a clean record on this issue, but those are kind of two separate problems with respect to the reporting of that data.
Okay, because I was very specific that this is a complaint I would like to have reported to RIPA. I was very specific about that. And so I'll just leave it at that. I'm not sure what can be done about it.
I'm so sorry, if I may respond, this is Rachel with the Museum of Tolerance. Ms. Nelson, I'm very sorry that happened to you. I can imagine it must have been very, very frustrating, especially when you get the response of, it doesn't happen in our city, right? That's often what we hear.
Right.
I'm also only responding because I've been with the Museum of Tolerance for 10 years, do conduct racial profiling training, and I'm basing my answer in terms of being solution oriented and actually legal for you. Unfortunately, I think why this issue is so challenging is we never know the motivations of officers, right? We just can't tell. And that is based on the 14th Amendment, right? What's an officer's motivation? Unfortunately, it is over time. So my solution for you is to keep, and I know it's frustrating, and this is similar to when you're investigating hate crimes, right? Is people have to complain. People have to continue to file those reports, file those complaints, so that there is a mechanism on record, right? Because that's what happens with hate crime investigations. It might be a hate incident, but over time, and unfortunately it takes time, then hopefully something is built in that then these things can be addressed. So, and we do talk about that in this class, is actions and motivation over time with officers. So I don't know, I hope that helps. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. So, boy, it's almost 12:15. I think Mr. Hilton, you're up. Did you have a question or a comment?
I have 5 comments. I will begin by referring to Ms. Glover's comment about the September 2017 meeting. I believe the person who spoke forcibly was a Professor Khalid Alexander. He is a professor at a local university, and his point was what Post represented was pure fiction. Why I remember is I immediately wrote to Post, and I asked them to change their curriculum because there was no basis for them to believe that what they were saying was in any way an item that resembled the truth. 2 years later, I wrote again, and as a result of that writing, the people at Post sicked, as you sick a dog, sicked the CHP on me, and Commissioner Stanley's people have since made my life quite uncomfortable. I will leave it at that. Commissioner Stanley perhaps may have something to say. Let me get to my comments. Perhaps it was Officer Kurtz who said that it's sometimes normal to ask a person in a consensual encounter if it's okay to pat the person down. That would make all parties comfortable. That is coercion. Who can refuse? I know about one person who did, and the officer searched him anyway, and on appeal, the arrestee won. Second, the matter of known probation status as the reason for a stop. Comment was that perhaps persons did not know how many were like that. I put it to you that these discussions ought to be informed by data, and the data shows that there are thousands. Consensual encounters. What defines them? Well, the California Department of Justice improperly instructs that welfare checks with the homeless be coded or entered into the data system as consensual encounters resulting in a search. And there is a companion item that says, officer witnessed the commission of a crime. Something that sounds like that. Now, I have written to the DOJ about it on numerous occasions. I do not know if they've corrected it, but if you look at the RIPA report, meaning the last year's RIPA report, you will see mention of 35,000 such records. I put it to you that it's not 35,000, it's more like 155,000. So the business of consensual encounters is problematic, and it ought to be addressed properly. A welfare check with a homeless person is not a consensual encounter that results in a search. And the California Department of Justice, not errs, but, well, I won't use any explanation for it, or I will not try to characterize it, except that it is not proper. There was a mention that there is transparency to stat data. There isn't. Data remains concealed, especially reasons for stop explanation, reasons for search explanation, and location of stop. All of these are embargoed by the California Department of Justice.
Richard,
You have, yes.
that sound like 5 comments. We're running out of time.
Can I finish my comment?
I'll give you a yes.
Or would you like to restrict it? Because if my comments make people uncomfortable, I will withdraw them.
Richard, you have I'm just letting you know you got about 2 more minutes before we have to stop. Please.
Oh, okay. Well, my comment will not take 2 minutes. We'll just spend 30 seconds where I'm being interrupted because I take it that you find my comments uncomfortable. Now you will hear them. Full name and the occupation of every individual arrested must be disclosed. Must be disclosed. So the discussion where these items are removed is inappropriate. Thank you.
Thank you,
I'm
Mr.
finished.
Hilton. I appreciate your comments. Okay, so let's go back to our agenda. We're about a little bit over. Let's talk about discussions of the next steps. We only have a couple of minutes for that. And if I can find that, our next steps for our future reports, analyze Academy AB 953 training. The board would love to get involved earlier in training course development, and we on the board would like to work with POST to ensure more board recommendations and best practices made in past reports are adopted by POST. Does anybody on the board have any other comments or questions for this meeting? Please. Nope. Damon? Nope. Commissioner?
No, nothing for me.
Allison or anybody from DOJ?
Nothing here. I think you covered it.
Okay.
Is there just a reminder that the next board meeting
I
is
was just
September? Well, but you didn't say that.
I paused too long. But I was going to say the next board meeting, September 2nd at 10 a.m. And everyone should have gotten notice, and the meeting will be held Thursday. And the meeting notice has been posted on the website.
Okay. Well, I guess we can adjourn the meeting if nobody else has anything else to say. Thank you. See you guys next
Great.
time.